Hey there, Alex Kidman here. And look, honestly, when they said, hey, we're sending you a narwhal, I got worried because, where am I even meant to house that kind of thing? I don't have a pool. What do you even feed those beasts? But no, this isn't that, sea-bound creature. Instead, this is the Narwal Freo X Ultra. It's a robot mop and vacuum cleaner. I've tested quite a few of those over the years, although this is the first one I've tested by Narwal. That's Narwal without an H, by the way, which was where my confusion came from. So what do I like about this particular robot vacuum cleaner? Well, look, in design terms, Narwal has at least done something a little bit different, because most robot vacuum cleaners are very samey. Round circular robot, a square dull looking base station. The base station here is a little bit more rounded out, which is kind of nice actually. It just gives it a slightly different aesthetic. It's almost like an old school MacBook. It's got that kind of rounded Apple feel to it. Nice touch panel at the top. And the base station itself houses two separate water compartments, one dirty, one clean, as well as a detergent bottle. Now, one word of warning here, this slightly confused me because the instructions aren't super clear when you're setting it up. The detergent bottle has its own little housing inside in front of where the clean water goes. That threw me for a minute or two because I kind of thought, are they telling me to put this detergent bottle in the clean water? And I didn't think that was the case, and it's not, by the way. But maybe that was just me misinterpreting it. In any case, the design is sound while still falling within the realm of, yeah, it's a robot vacuum cleaner. It sort of looks like a lot of other robot vacuum cleaners. Speaking of that detergent, it's one of only two actual consumable items with this. So this is your typical combination mop and vacuum cleaner, but you do get the option with the dirt and grime to have it collect in specified dust bags. Now, I get there's a big market there for people who have particular dust sensitivity. Of course, that's a very good idea if that's you. For the rest of us, though, I just don't feel like it's that difficult to actually empty a dustbin. It's probably more environmentally sound than throwing away little plastic baggies full of dirt. Narwhal says that they're good for up to 7 weeks worth of grime, depending on how grimy you are, I suppose. But I would tend to opt not to use the bags myself. I suppose it's nice that it's up to you. Kind of the same story with the detergent. And here I was a little bit worried because I'm relatively scent sensitive. So really heavily perfumed things really can set me off, but actually really haven't had a problem with it. And it's optional anyway. If you just want to do a water mopping solution, 100% you can do that. There's a toggle within the app that lets you say, hey, release some detergent into the water, or don't. Up to you. Nice to see. In terms of installation, look, the Freo X Ultra is a big unit. That means it comes in a big box. It's probably a good idea to have two people to hand just to kind of lift it out and set it up. But the setup itself is quite simple outside of that problem I talked about with the detergent bottle. Once you've actually got it all unpacked and plugged in, all of which is fairly obvious, it's then over to the Narwhal app, which again follows the same kind of basic routines you'd expect out of anyone's vacuuming app. First step it has to undergo is to map out your house, and it does this via LiDAR, and it does this fast. Now, I've got to admit, I didn't time it, but I think it might have actually been the fastest to map my house of any of the many robot vacuum cleaners I've tested over the years. And that's no small feat. I don't live in a particularly small place, so it's got quite a few nooks and crannies to discover, and it discovered them all with very few problems, identified carpet areas, all good stuff, all nice and quick. If you do mess up, if you do think, oh wait, no, I've moved some furniture, you do have to get it to a full map again, which is slightly irksome, but not too irksome, given how quick it is to actually get that map down. Then we're on to the actual cleaning, and optimally, the Narwal Freo app wants its vacuum cleaners to run in its own AI mode, basically intelligently working out where to clean and how. And you do get your standard modes here, so it'll break up its spaces into rooms, and you can tell it clean the whole lot, or just clean these rooms, or just vacuum, or just mop. One thing it does, which I quite like, and it's quite nice and granular, is that you're not just stuck to, hey, I want to mop, or hey, I want to vacuum. You can vacuum then mop, or mop then vacuum, or set granular settings for different rooms and different surface types. Now, that does involve a little bit more work, of course, but I love seeing the idea that you can make it do what you want it to do once, and then just say, right, run this particular custom program. Smart stuff. In terms of the actual clean, so it's not the strongest vacuum out in the market today, but it's pretty strong. Default settings are reasonably quiet, though, if that concerns you, but at full whack, yeah, you're going to hear it. Did a very, very good job through thinner carpets and hard surfaces and some of the thicker carpets that I've got, where I've often seen a lot of robot vacuum cleaners sort of get lost. They get into the thicker fibres and they seem to just lose their way of where they were going. They spin around for a bit and then they plaintively complain that they're stuck. I only ever got the Freo X Ultra stuck once. I recovered it from that position and then it completed the rest of the clean without an issue. So the vacuuming is fine and it does a pretty good job of compressing such that you don't necessarily have to empty the little dustbin every single time. I like that. On the mopping side, it uses circular brushes that do protrude out a reasonable kind of distance and also do raise up to 12 millimeters. Now, note of caution there. That does make them technically carpet suitable, but if I were you, I'd measure your carpets first, because 12 mm is not as high as you might think it is. My thinner rugs, fine, not a problem, passed over those without an issue. Thicker rugs, yeah, that did leave a thin layer of moisture. Nothing that really concerned me, and only a mistake I made once. But on really thick rugs, I could see it being a bit of an issue. Again, of course, you could use that combination, hey, vacuum then mop setting to perhaps get past that, depending on the layout of your house. The other thing I noticed, though, with the mopping is that whilst it's very stubborn and it will intelligently go over areas that it identifies as being dirty, it also left my floors a little bit more moist than some competing robot mops I've used, even in the premium space. Not wet, but certainly there was more dampness there than I would really expect to see. And this has a bit of a knock-on effect as well, because what I found over more than a week's worth of testing was that it actually needed to be emptied a bit more frequently than a few other robot mops I've used. The wastewater builds up, because it always does. And look, I suppose it depends on how you look at it. In the optimist position, that's because it's actually cleaning the mops really thoroughly, which it is doing. In the pessimist position, well, you've got to lug around that dirty water and get rid of it a bit more frequently. This isn't an entirely hands-off, but then no robot vacuum cleaner is at that stage yet. I honestly find that anything in this category is best used on a daily basis anyway. That kind of maintenance clean. So you start with it, maybe a little dirty, it does an initial clean, and then you run it at least once a day to maintain that level. It's not necessarily going to get absolutely every corner spotless and sparkling, but it does a pretty good job. The Narwal Freo X Ultra does also support limited voice commands, although you might not notice this if you didn't go digging. At first I actually thought it didn't, which would be very unusual for a robot mop in this price category. It has support for Alexa and Siri, but it's hidden within the Freo app and not enabled by default. There's also no onboard Narwal voice assistant or anything of the sort, although, to be honest, to date, for the ones that have had their own in-house voice assistant, I've found them all lacking, so maybe that's a problem best avoided. So what do I think of the Narwal Freo X Ultra? Well, look, Narwal isn't a brand that I've tested previously, but straight out of the gate, they've delivered a pretty decent combination robot vacuum cleaner and mop. It gets the basics right, so it managed the tricky mix of surfaces in my home without too many issues. And while it does sit in the premium price space for robot vacuum cleaners and mops, you totally can get cheaper robot vacuum cleaners and mops. It's actually on the lower side of that premium grouping these days. A lot of the real flagships sit at $2,500 Australian or more, and this one sells for $2,299, and in fact, slightly cheaper at the time of recording, so maybe worth checking around for specials and deals to see if you can score one for, well, let's say under that $2,000 mark. That's what I'm seeing right now, although I can't guarantee that's what you'll be able to get it for at the time you're watching this video. It's a decent robot vacuum cleaner. It's certainly a contender in that premium space. It does what it does pretty well, and it does it within a stylish enclosure. There's a lot to like here. Anyway, that's my take on the Narwal Freo X Ultra. What do you think? Anything you'd like to know? Hit me up in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching through to the end, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe.